Hi everybody, it's Az here from HeelvsBabyface with my first impression of Root Letter, a mystery adventure game from Kadokawa Games that follows a 32-year-old man and his mission to discover what happened to his pen pal of 15 years ago when he suddenly discovers a very cryptic letter which he had never read before. Meaning, of course, that he hadn't given a shit what happened to her in the previous 15 years. It's only now that he's read the letter that he... Anyway, that's not important. So it takes you to a small town where you have to go through her previous classmates, now they're all grown up, to discover what happened to her. Although it's probably not that difficult to work out when you read what she calls their nicknames, and these are meant to be 7 of her best friends. Bestie, that's a good one. Shorty, not really that good. Monkey, not going to touch that with a barge pole. Snappy, Fatty, Bitch, Four Eyes. What the hell does she call her enemies? Let's get this back on track. Hi everybody, it's Az here from HeelvsBabyface with my first impression of Root Letter, a mystery adventure from Kadokawa Games that follows a 32-year-old man who I can only describe as going through a pre-midlife crisis. He quits his job of 11 years. He suddenly picks up a stack of pen pal letters from an 18-year-old girl that he corresponded with 15 years ago. I feel you, brah. And then finds a mysterious 11th letter, which doesn't have any postmark on it, that he's never opened before, and has a very cryptic message inside stating that she's killed somebody and he'll never hear from her again. So armed with this new information, our hero, who by the way decides to nickname himself Max because he does everything to the extreme, flies on out to the small city of Matsue, where his pen pal used to go to school, in an effort to discover what happened to her. And it's very early doors that he finds out that a girl by the name of Aya Fumino, who is the exact same name as his pen pal, had died 25 years previously. And nobody has any knowledge of this Aya Fumino, who he is corresponding with 15 years ago. So the mystery becomes, who exactly was he corresponding with? Why were they pretending to be Aya Fumino? What exactly is going on between her and her friends? And why has he been dragged into this 15 years later? Now, as a hook and a premise, yeah, you've got my interest immediately. Number one, because you discover this 11th unseen letter, which leads to a murder mystery, potentially. And number two, when you decide to fly out to the city, you discover that everything that you knew about your pen pal, which admittedly, in the span of 10 or 11 letters isn't that much anyway, was a complete lie. So conceptually, this can go off in many different directions and actually has quite exciting potential where it could lead to. Now, from what I've just been talking about, you can clearly see that the game is trying to deal with some rather adult themes. Death, loss, murder, potential abuse. So it's very, very odd that one of the very first scenes you have in this game when you arrive in the province of Shimane, where Matsue is based, is with the region's real-life mascot, and you have this back and forth where it says nothing to you, and yet you magically understand everything that it's trying to communicate by the medium of silence. It's silly, it's daft. If it's meant to be promoting the region, it's awkward and unnecessary. And something like this scene never rematerializes anywhere in the game at all, which to me pulled me out of what was a very interesting and intriguing opening. The game then tries to grab you back, and to some degree it succeeds. You start off by just embedding yourself at a local inn where you're going to stay for a few days, and then you go to the most logical location straight away. I half expected the game just to send me willy-nilly around the place, but no, you actually go to the address that you sent the letters to 15 years ago. But when you get there, you discover that it's actually an empty plot of land. Speaking to one of the neighbours reveals that there used to be a house here, but it burnt down 15 years ago when the correspondence stopped. And it's also here that you discover that Aya Firmino had died 25 years ago, 10 years before the letters had even started between you. So with the immersion partially restored, I was ready to see where my investigation was going to take me, and oh boy, should I not have been, because this game plods along at an absolute snail's pace. And before any of you step in and say, yes, Hans, but this is an adventure game, it's a mystery game, you're meant to discover stuff, go places, find things out, put the pieces together. I'm sorry, but even the game itself at times, the main character admits that he is completely lost. He's got nowhere, he knows nothing, the locations that he's visited have yielded nothing whatsoever, and it just feels half the time like you're going from location to location simply for the game to pretend that you're actually doing something when you're physically not. And when you communicate with the restaurant owners or the shop owners or whoever you're chatting to, it's the same process each time. Either show them something, ask them a question. And if you're stuck for something to do, there's the think command, which will give you a hint. However, sometimes the think command is actually the correct thing to do, which kind of defeats the object, because it's saying that everything that you've got, question-wise, item-wise, are useless, and therefore you need the deus ex machina of think for the game to actually point you to a new direction that you wouldn't have got through any other means. Which in turn makes me feel like I'm going down a linear progression route when this is meant to be an investigation, and also when I eventually manage to scrounge up enough evidence to approach somebody who I believe is actually one of Aya's former classmates, if you fail in the interrogation of them, and the interrogations are batshit crazy, then the game will simply let you start the investigation again from the beginning until you get it right. And supposedly this game has multiple different endings. But how can the multiple different endings based off your decisions be true when it's literally steering you down a certain pathway all the way through to at least 6.5 odd hours into the game where I am right now? You can't help but feel that the events which will lead to the multiple different endings are literally shoehorned in, and all the hours of investigation that you've put into the game really have nothing to do with the event point that will happen in the game. Now, it was very easy for me when I did my previous first impression videos to put the game in, sink about 5 or 6 hours into it, see the mechanics, see the story, get an understanding of where I think things were going, and make a determination on whether or not I think it was ideal for you guys. This, though, I think Root Letter asks a completely different question. And I think the question it asks is, does it even deserve to come out on the PlayStation 4? I absolutely see this as a Vita game. Sure, you get your handheld out, you put it in, you play a little bit before you get to work or school or wherever you travel to in the morning, stick it in your bag for later, and then maybe on the way back home, get it back out again and play a wee bit more. But do I really see somebody coming home overnight and picking up Root Letter on their PlayStation 4 and putting it in, sitting down and sinking a load of hours into playing it? Absolutely not. I don't think this deserves to be on the PlayStation 4 for a simple reason. The production value of this game is relatively minimal compared to a lot of other games, and I'm not talking your AAAs, I'm even talking about your mid-range games here. This game could have easily have come out on a previous generation of console. Hell, the likelihood is it could have come out on a PlayStation 2, for goodness sake, and in some capacity on the PlayStation 1. There's nothing here which is really taxing the machine at all. Now, some of you may argue that that doesn't matter. As long as the gameplay's fun, as long as the game's fun, it doesn't matter which generation of console it comes out, it has every right to come onto any console. Fair enough, but if it is going to come out on a generation of console, the latest generation of console, then the price has to reflect that. And Root Letter wants full AAA price. This is RRPing at the same price as any AAA, any other game out there, and that to me is ridiculous. I mean, absolutely ridiculous. This game is not a £40 game whatsoever. If this game was to come out, it should have come out at 20 odd quid for the PlayStation and even 30 odd quid for the Vita, where it probably will be best appreciated on. But for a console sit down, goodness me, no way should this get the full AAA price. Now, if the game was great, then I could possibly understand. But the game isn't. The story loses you so many times because you just dither and dilly and dally because the game is desperately just trying to delay you to make you feel as if you're actually doing something, that you're investigating when you're not really at all. And then it'll have the investigation moment, and then you'll go back to the dillying and dallying and dillying and dallying until you come across another classmate and do an investigation again. This makes it structurally really poor. And then to add on top of that, the ridiculously basic gameplay. Every time you communicate with an NPC, you're just using the same couple of tools over and over and over, making it dull as dishwater. And then to compound matters, they themselves seem to verge from the bizarre to the ridiculous as characters. And when you're dealing with this murder mystery storyline where, am I receiving letters from a ghost 15 years ago because they died 25 years ago, or is it somebody else and why is it being kept a secret from me, and all this kind of intrigue, and your characters behave the ridiculous and bizarre ways that they do, I found it so difficult to keep myself rooted in the title. And that's a pun intended right there. Now, I can't give Root Letter a mark out of 10 because this isn't a review. This is a first impression based off approximately 6 to 7 hours that I put into this title. So what I do instead is I either give it a thumbs up, where I'm going to continue to play this game, and I'd recommend that you go out and get a copy yourself. A thumb in the middle, where I'm not sure if I'm going to continue to play or not, and if you want to purchase a copy, then it's really up to you whether or not you do. Or a thumbs down, where I'm definitely not going to continue to play this game, nor would I recommend you spend your hard-earned cash on it either. And I'm going to give Root Letter a unsurprising thumbs down. This murder mystery should have captivated me and kept me desperate to log on to find out the next piece of story. But it didn't, because it didn't have a good story and it didn't have good characters, and the gameplay was so boring, I was just thinking about what to play next. I'm not going to continue to play this, nor would I recommend that you pick up a copy yourself. If you are desperate for a mystery game like Ace Attorney on the PlayStation 4, sit back, wait. I imagine this is going to be in the bargain bins in no time whatsoever. So there you go. I hope you enjoyed the vid. If you did, do give it a thumbs up and also subscribe to my channel. Follow me on social media and Twitch for live streaming. Links, they're in the description down below. And I'll be back with some more stuff very soon. You take care, everybody. Bye-bye. Then probably one of 3 things has happened. Number 1, we've just had coitus. Number 2, we're in the process of having coitus. Number 3, we're just about to have coitus.